Today, we are witnessing a historic weather event that could bring us the coldest temperatures in the last 100 years. Yes, you heard that right. This is potentially a once-in-a-lifetime cold snap that will make you feel like you've stepped into an Arctic freeze. The temperatures are expected to plunge to bone-chilling lows. And if you're not careful, this could be a serious health risk. So, what should you do in the face of this extreme cold? First and foremost, bundle up. Make sure to layer your clothing, wearing thermal undergarments, thick sweaters, and coats that can withstand these freezing temperatures. Don't forget your gloves, hats, and scarves, as exposed skin can freeze in minutes. But the most important advice I can give you today is this: stay indoors unless absolutely necessary. If you have to venture outside, make sure to take all precautions because the wind chill will make it feel even colder than the thermometer shows. This cold front is no joke. It's not just a typical winter day. It's a rare event that could shake even the hardiest of us. So prepare yourself, your family, and your home for this bitter blast. Keep an eye on the forecast for updates, and remember, safety first. Stay warm, stay safe, and let's get through this freezing storm together. The latest model guidance and a breakdown of that guidance are here as we continue to look at this very active weather pattern. I'll tell you, so far, 2025 has had plenty of surprises, and I imagine the year will probably continue in the same way. Even once we get past winter, it will be important to stay up to date when severe weather season rolls around, followed by the crucial hurricane season as we move into the fall. All right, guys, with that said, let's go ahead and start breaking down the guidance now. What you're seeing right now next to me is an afternoon run of the latest European computer model. It shows potential for southern winter weather stretching from Texas all the way through the Gulf Coast and into the Carolinas by next week. This will really be the big topic this evening, and it's what we'll break down in just a moment. But before we get there, let's discuss the Arctic air mess that could provide the cold for this winter weather, along with the possibility of snow in the Northeast, even along the Aang 95 corridor going into this weekend and early next week. Now, let's start by breaking down this pattern and discussing how it will unfold, along with all the key players involved. This is our European ensemble, specifically the 500 millibar height anomaly map. Essentially, this shows us where there is warm air, where cold air is present, and where low pressure systems or storms might develop. This is the pattern we'll see tomorrow afternoon and evening across the lower 48. We still have a large pocket of blue across much of the east, but we're on the converging side of that trough. What that means is we'll experience sinking air above, which will prevent any significant storm systems from forming. However, we will see a small clipper system or a short wave embedded within this. It will swing through the Midwest and Northeast, bringing light snow showers, but overall it will just be a cold day in the east. Meanwhile, out west, a ridge will build in and temperatures will start to warm up. But don't be fooled. This will be one of those classic winter fake outs that we sometimes get during this time of year. Even though it's only January and we're not really thinking about spring yet, it will feel like it, especially with how cold it's been. By Thursday afternoon, we'll begin to see this play out. And by Friday, the ridge will be in place. However, behind it, Arctic air looms, ready to push southward in a powerful way by Friday evening and into the weekend. A strong Arctic front is likely to sweep through the lower 48, bringing snow showers, rain showers, and more importantly, potentially dangerous cold. We can see this developing as we time it out here into Saturday afternoon and Sunday. By Monday, we'll experience brutal cold across the entire lower 48, as indicated by this blue mass. It's not often that we get a polar or Arctic air mass strong enough that everyone in the lower 48 feels it. But this one will be different. From California to Maine, we'll all feel this cold air. The next question is where the moisture will overlap with that cold air, and we're still trying to figure that out. However, I have a strong feeling that someone in the South is going to be heavily impacted by either snow or ice, with other regions like the Northeast and Ohio Valley also in the mix. We have a few different potential outcomes here, which we'll break down shortly. But as you can see, that cold air will linger, and by the middle of next week, it will still be holding on. This likely lasts into Wednesday and Thursday. Check this out. By Friday and Saturday, the pattern will remain active. By the time we get to January 25th or 26th, that's when the pattern will change. We haven't discussed the West much recently, but stay tuned. Later on in January, we expect a pattern change with a warm up in the Southeast and a significant cool down out west as the trough flips and the pattern shifts once again. But before we get there, we're in for a very active period with Arctic cold lasting the next 7 to 10 days or so. Let's go ahead and take a look at just how cold it could get. We'll start with our temperature anomaly map, which shows the difference from normal. This is for Friday afternoon. You'll notice that there isn't a lot of blue on the map. In fact, we're above average across Iowa, the Midwest, the Great Plains, and even parts of the East, warming back up compared to what we're experiencing right now. But like I said, don't let this fool you. If you have outdoor plans, Friday could be the best day for them. It may be the first time in a while that we get nice weather. So if you're planning to go for a walk or do something outside, try to make it Friday. By the time as we get to Saturday afternoon, here comes that Arctic front, well below average temperature, spilling southward into the lower 48, starting in the Rockies and moving into the Great Plains by Saturday. Let's move ahead to Sunday morning. The only areas still somewhat safe from the cold are the extreme East New England and the Southeast. However, you folks will eventually feel the cold too. By Monday afternoon, temperatures will be well below average. Check this out, nearly 40 to 50 degrees below normal in Wyoming, Colorado, and even colder temperatures spreading from coast to coast. That Arctic air will settle in and stick around. Moving further ahead, this cold air will latch on and stay around through Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday of next week. Then around 10 days from now, the pattern begins to moderate, but that gives a large window for precipitation to overlap with the cold air, which is exactly what I think will happen next week. Before we talk specifics about the snow and ice potential, I want to briefly break down just how cold it could get. We've talked about the anomalies, but let's put some actual numbers to those anomalies. These are the low temperatures forecasted for next Tuesday morning, which is just 6 days away. As you walk out the door, much of the Ohio Valley, the Great Plains, and the Rockies will be below zero. Cities like Kansas City and St. Louis will be in the single digits, flirting with zero. Temperatures will drop into the teens through the deep south, including Charlotte, Atlanta, Birmingham, and even parts of Mississippi and Louisiana. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if some of these areas even dip into the single digits well down south. It's one of those air masses we typically get only once a year, and this will likely be that one time this year. Of course, there's still plenty of winter left, so it could happen again, but this will be the coldest air we've seen so far this year. If you thought the low temperatures were rough, let's look at Tuesday afternoon next week. We likely won't get above freezing in cities like Birmingham, Jackson, Mississippi, and Memphis, all the way down to the Dallas-Fort Worth area. We'll only reach the single digits through Ohio, Indiana, the Midwest, the Great Lakes, and the interior Northeast. Some of the higher peaks in the north may struggle to get above zero, so it will definitely be very cold across the board. You get the idea. It's going to be cold, very cold. Now let's talk about precipitation for the weekend. There's going to be a bit of an appetizer with this system before the main event. As the cold air pushes east, this is the early morning of Saturday, and our front will likely be draped somewhere in this region. All that cold air will push south and east, potentially firing off some precipitation in the east and central parts of the country. I don't expect this to be a major event, but we will see both snow and rain. Snow is likely in the Ohio Valley up into Pennsylvania, portions of Michigan and New York State. Rain is expected in the south, with maybe a little bit of snow mixing into the Appalachians from North Carolina up through the Virginias and into the interior Northeast. Now that gets us to Sunday. The first part of the weekend won't be a big deal, but I'm watching an area where models have been hinting at the potential for a coastal low to develop as the cold air reaches the Atlantic. This could ride along the boundary and potentially bring winter weather to the Northeast and mid-Atlantic, including areas along the I-95 corridor. Nothing is set in stone right now. Sunday may not seem that far away, but when forecasting snow, it's still quite a ways out, and there are some model disagreements. However, here's the European model for Sunday afternoon. We could see snow falling in the DC area, the DMV, DC, Maryland, Virginia, the Delmarva region, and up into Philadelphia. A playoff football game is scheduled there, so a snow game could be on the table. Snow is also expected in much of New Jersey up into Long Island and eventually reaching Boston by Sunday evening before it moves out of the area. It won't be a major event, but it's definitely something to keep an eye on. So not a big deal, not a big storm on this model, but it is something to watch. In fact, I'll go ahead and switch to another model to show you the GFS, which also shows the same storm system, but with a slight difference. Let me back it up here. On the GFS, the coastal low forms, but it's a bit different. Two areas of low pressure develop. One stronger coastal low forms, but it's a little too far offshore to bring any winter weather. That's Sunday morning. Then a secondary low pressure begins to form just off the coast of the Carolinas further south. This brings some snow into Raleigh, Charlotte, Norfolk, Newport News, and sections of southeastern Virginia. It then moves up the coast, leaving dry air along the I-95 corridor. Both of these are possible solutions. Something in between is another possibility, and no storm at all is also a solution. And I think you can see this clearly on the ensembles. If we take a look, this is the chance of at least an inch of snow falling within a 24-hour time period from our European ensembles. This shows that initial burst of snow. I think the Ohio Valley and the interior Northeast will have a shot at seeing some snow. Then comes the secondary burst of energy. It's not a huge signal, but there is a signal for the 95 corridor on the European ensembles into the mountains of West Virginia. There's a pretty good chance of snow there, but this is generally about a 20% chance of accumulating snow. So we're not expecting a big event, but it's definitely something to keep an eye on with that potential setup going into Sunday. Now let's talk about next week. With the cold air already established by Monday and Tuesday, the question becomes, do we get a storm to overlap with that cold air? I think the answer is yes, but the question is for whom and exactly when. This is the European model showing our 500 megabyte height relative vorticity map. Essentially, think of this as a storm energy map. Anywhere you see brighter colors indicates energy to produce some sort of precipitation. What happens here on the European model is that we see an area of energy developing in California. A bit of a trough begins to develop, and remember that strong Arctic high pressure is locked over the central part of the country at this time Monday morning. You'll get areas of energy rotating around this blocking air mass, and that's what will produce the chance for snow and ice, potentially as far south as the European model suggests. Moving ahead in time, you can see that piece of energy near California, Arizona, and New Mexico. It breaks off a little bit, and by Tuesday morning, we have a stretched out area of energy that's producing a lot of lift along the southern tier of the country. This could result in smaller systems in that Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday timeframe. Then the main event, if you will, comes after that. Watch that piece of energy near California. It breaks off and begins to spin on its own. This is Tuesday afternoon into Wednesday and Thursday, Friday. You'll notice that by next weekend, the energy is more defined. This setup is complicated, lots of moving parts revolving around each other. That's why we don't have a nailed down forecast just yet. But what we do think is that the ingredients for winter weather are there. Now, let me show you the latest European model and what it looks like on the map. Again, the time is right above my head, so feel free to refer to that at any time. Let me verbalize the timing for you as well. On Monday afternoon and evening, We're looking at a winter storm breaking out, especially by Tuesday morning. This will affect the deep south from Houston into Dallas, Austin, San Antonio, Shreveport, Mississippi, and Alabama. I'll stop here and remind you that we're still too far out to nail down exact precipitation types, exact timing, and totals. I don't want you to focus on those specifics just yet. This is to give you a general idea. We're not showing snowfall totals at this point, just the overall trend on the map. By Wednesday night, this storm continues affecting Georgia, the Carolinas, and even the deep south, with areas like Savannah, Charleston, and Mobile, Alabama, getting in on the wintry action. This would be Tuesday into Wednesday, and then it moves out of here. After that, we could see another system move in on Wednesday into Thursday with more wintry precipitation for the south, affecting the Carolinas, Georgia, and Virginia. That system will then push a bit closer to the northeast. Finally, you get the main piece of energy around the 25th, which I think could have a higher chance of impacting the northeast. The point here is that it's wave after wave, not just one storm system. There could be multiple pieces of winter energy producing some sort of precipitation. Now, that's the European model, but what about the GFS? Well, I'll tell you, it's quite different. These are the two main models we use, European and GFS, and there are other models as well. Let's compare them. Here's the GFS at the same time. Notice the difference. Let's compare the two side by side, European versus GFS. We came to the end of the video, guys. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. See you in the next video.